All right, this is video number 4, and we're going to be talking about President Trump and what's called collusion with Russia, and we want to get into that. Okay, so here's the situation. 2016, the presidential election was going on, and near the end of the election, the FBI released a report that said that Russia was interfering in the 2016 election. And it didn't go into much detail. What happened is that the FBI reached out to both campaigns, the Trump campaign and the Clinton campaign, and let them know that Russia was interfering in the election. The Clinton campaign took it seriously, and the reason they took it seriously is because their email had been hacked. The Trump campaign blew it off. They did not take it seriously. They just weren't interested in knowing the news. So President Obama felt that he could not do anything further because if he did, he felt he would be interfering in the election. He didn't want to offer any special help to one side or the other. So basically they backed away. They sent a message to Russia saying, quit interfering in the election. But that was about it. After the election is over and President Trump won, more information came out. And in the summer of 2020, the Senate Intelligence Committee completed a 2-year investigation into the 2016 election. They released more than 1,000 pages of information. Some of it's redacted. So you have a page and there's some words that are crossed out. They're blacked out so you can't see what they are. You do that for intelligence purposes. So some of that is redacted. But despite that, we have a very good idea of what the Russians did in 2016. Number one, they, using the internet, attempted to influence voters' decisions by using bots, so mechanical people, if you will, posts on Facebook and Twitter. Thousands and thousands of posts. And those posts generally made Hillary Clinton look bad, or made Donald Trump look good, or focused on existing tensions in the United States and tried to exacerbate the attention, tried to make the tension seem greater and greater. So the first thing they did is they used social media. Second thing they did is they hacked into the campaigns. And specifically, we know about what they did with the Hillary Clinton campaign. They hacked into her emails. What they did is they sent a phishing email to the chair of Hillary Clinton's campaign. He didn't want to click on it. He suspected it was a phishing email, but he checked with his IT department. The IT department said it should be fine. So he clicked on it, and that allowed then the Russians to have complete access to all of the email correspondence that went on in the Clinton campaign and between the Clinton campaign and the Democratic National Committee. So the Russians then had a good idea of what was going on. Now, what did they do with that information? Basically, they downloaded it, and then they shipped it off to an organization called WikiLeaks. And during the campaign, 2016, every now and then WikiLeaks would drop some email that makes Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Party look bad. Okay? So they strategically released embarrassing information from those emails. Okay? Here's an example. On the day that the tape was released of Donald Trump getting off the bus from Inside Edition, and in that tape he talked about grabbing women. On the day that was released, after that came out, shortly afterwards, WikiLeaks released some embarrassing information about Hillary Clinton in her emails. Okay? And that's how they played the game. anytime things are going badly for Donald Trump, well, then WikiLeaks would show up with some embarrassing Hillary Clinton emails. Okay, so that's the second way. The third way is that the Russians deliberately explored all of the 50 states' election offices using phishing, using other methods to get access to them. They went to all 50 states, their election offices, and tried to figure out what's going on. They probed them. They had the greatest success, apparently, in Illinois, where they got in and they actually got access to the voter names, the voter addresses, the other information that you fill out when you fill out a voter registration form. But they did this in all 50 states. Okay? They never, as far as it's been revealed, altered the vote. They were in the right place in a couple of states to do so if they chose to do it. Some states they weren't successful. They just probed it and didn't do anything, couldn't get in, couldn't get past their security. In others, they had no problem, got past their security, and could have changed the votes, but didn't. Okay? So those are the three things that took place in terms of Russian interference with the election. But what we're really going after is what was the Trump campaign's relationship with the Russians. And it turns out that President Trump's campaign manager during part of the campaign, a man named Paul Manafort, had an individual on his staff who was a Russian intelligence agent. Okay? The Russian government reached out to the Trump campaign and offered help. There was actually a meeting between the president's son, the president's son-in-law, this Paul Manafort guy, all to meet with a Russian person who's affiliated with the Russian government, all of it to gather information. The Russians had promised information on Hillary Clinton. The Trumps showed up. They didn't get any information, but they certainly were trying. There's also other connections, other meetings between people who were in the Trump campaign and the Russians. Okay? Now, is that collusion? Did they work together? And that's a very difficult thing to prove. A special prosecutor was appointed, Robert Mueller. He spent 2 years investigating that campaign, and he never came to the conclusion that there was collusion. What he said was there was an awful lot of contact between the two, but they never could get their act together to collude with each other to try to achieve some goal. Okay? So, that's really what's going on here. Now, some people in the Trump campaign and President Trump call the whole thing a hoax. There's nothing there. They say it's all based on a phony document. And what it is a document made by a British intelligence agent who had retired from the British government. He was working on his own. He was hired first by Republicans to investigate Donald Trump, then by Hillary Clinton to investigate Donald Trump. And what he wrote is a 15-page dossier, an intelligence brief, on the connection between the two, between Trump and the Russians. That was released after President Trump was sworn in as president. And what it details is President Trump wanted to have business in Russia, and the Russians seem to act as if they have something about President Trump, some information about him that would be embarrassing, and they're holding it over his head. And so because they have this information, President Trump does what the Russians tell him to do. Okay? That dossier is largely discredited. But President Trump and his supporters talk about it all the time. And they say that was the basis for why there was an investigation into the Trump campaign. This phony dossier. Okay? Turns out that some of the dossier is correct. A lot of it we simply don't know what the truth is. All right? So the conclusion from all this is 2016, there were connections between the Trump campaign and the Russian government. They did things together. They shared information. Okay? But you cannot prove to the satisfaction of prosecutors in a court that there was collusion. So, is that a hoax? That's up to you. What we do know is that over the course of his presidency, Donald Trump is reluctant to denounce Russian behavior. He is very careful when he talks about Russia. He is quick to denounce Chinese behavior, but not Russian behavior. In the summer of 2020, the intelligence community in the United States, working for President Trump, came out with a report, and they said that Russia is interfering in the election again, in the 2020 election. And they're using especially social media. There's been no word of any contact between the Trump campaign and Russia, and there's no word of any sort of phishing scams or anything like that. Election offices around the country are supposed to be much more secure than they were 4 years ago. But we still have the intelligence community saying that Russia is using social media to mess with the 2020 election. More later.